Well, I gotta apologize to everybody who's been following me on this boat project. The last 7 months have been a complete derail. December I gave an update, said it was cold, my knees were bad, but later that month, family member passed away in Australia. I had to take off and go to Australia, spent a month there. Came back, started working on the boat for a little bit, got some video of that. Then in April, another loved one, father-in-law, passed away. Made another trip to Australia, spent a month there that trip. Came back, started working on the boat, got some video, was ready to post episode number 10. Took a trip out fishing for some salmon, and with the GoPro on my head, while netting a fish, the fish swung its tail, flipped the bill of my hat upward, and the GoPro went down to Davy Jones's locker. So I guess the battery's probably done recording now, but I don't think anyone will be finding it since it was about 200 to 300 feet of water. Long story shortened at that point, we are back on the boat, new GoPro, and we are motivated to get this thing going. We've got the washdown pump, the live bait pump, the scupper that will have a ball valve on it, feeding both of those through the bottom hull. And since the last report, we've got the battery box now fiberglassed in right here, getting solid on the back transom here. Got the other side there we'll be working on next. Get those pumps put in the back, hooked up, and then fiberglass that panel there on the back. Got the holes cut on both of these for the access doors. I did have to modify the battery box because with this access hole door in place, it is such a tight fit for the battery that the battery box had to be cut more into a tray because I could not lift the battery up high enough to get it into the box. So now everything's set there. Got this fiberglassed in place, and once I've got that other side put in, then I'll be doing some final fiberglass there. I need to cut a piece down in here that'll go underneath the splash well. But the project is finally back into gear. My apologies for the 7-month hiatus, but it was not a planned disruption to the boat. But I hope to get this thing finished so we can get the power put on before the end of this year. It's already July 26th, 2023. Yeah, this has been a year and a half, but when it's done, I can't wait to take it for a ride. All right, we've got this bait pump washdown motor painted up. Got the particle filter attached here. This hose will go down to the through hole down in that spot right there, and the pump will be mounted right up against the back transom there. Let's get putting that thing in place so we can get this section of the rear transom all glassed in and finished. solid mount. All right. I think before we work any more back here, we are going to remove these deck screws that keep poking me in the butt. There we are. No more pain in the ass. I think I'm gonna need to order a 90-degree angle. Otherwise, if I bend this too sharp, you see that pinch right there, it's gonna cut the flow of water off. So I think time to get on Amazon and get a couple of 90 degrees, one to go down from that filter and one to come around the corner from the pump and out here to where the hose and the connector for the bait tank will be. We're going to need 90 degrees on there, otherwise there will be a pinch point. Okay, now that that's in place, time to do some wiring. Okay, so today we got a little bit more done. The intake port is now here at the bottom of the boat. Put into place to scupper up into the washdown pump and bait tank pump. Comes up through that hole down there. We'll put the ball cock, stainless of course, on there. That way I can turn it off and not allow water to come through that if desired, or open the ball cock up and let water pass through to the filter and the pump, which will then be either alternatively used as a washdown hose or for the bait tank. And bait tank design I went with, much less expensive. They wanted $1,500 for a bait tank, and I got one of these Rubbermaid Brutes, and also has the base on it that will screw down to the bottom of the floor, and that way this can be twisted and removed. Inside you can see the drain cup here is perforated so the bait don't go down the drain, but water will seep through that and spill out through the top. And then we'll put a hole down at the bottom where the incoming water will come from the bottom, circulate around in a circle, and drain out at the top. So with that in place, as soon as I get the final connections made there with the hose and tubing, then it'll be time to enclose this back box here as that other side over there is done. Fiberglass that together, And then the next phase will be connecting the splash well to the flooring around this side and putting boards and fiberglassing that all together, tying this all together to make a really strong transom. Big motor and big ocean. You need strength in the butt end of the boat. All right, well, today we ended up getting some work done on these pumps, or pump I should say. Take a look. We've got the through hole with a shutoff coming through the bottom, coming up through a strainer filter, make sure there's no particles coming through the pump, over to the pump, to a splitter, one side going to a hose coupling fitter that will go to my wash down hose, and that will be basically a hole here in the back panel that goes back here, and that way I can pull the hose out, and when I'm done it'll shove back into the hole and then just drop down there into the compartment. This other side comes over here and we'll go through the back panel and have a shutoff valve. That way when the bait tank is needed, this valve can be turned into the on position and get flow into the bait tank. When not needed, it can be shut off, and then the hose will still have full use. So also for the drain here, I put the hosing going back. Not going to drill through the transom for the scuppers because I don't know where the water line is on this thing until the motor's on and put in the water. So for the time being, the drain will just take the water back here into the bilge, and the bilge pumps in there will just pump it out. So in the future, once this thing gets in the water with the motor, then I can decide if I want to drill through the transom and put the scuppers. Kind of resistant to drilling two giant holes in the transom. May just leave it this way. We'll have to figure that out after a while once the boat's in the water. But down with all the pump and hoses completed. We're gonna putting that panel in place there and fiberglassing that in. Time to get some resin mixed up, some cloth cut, and start wrapping that thing and putting some layers of glass on there to solidify the transom like this side over here is. We'll get back when we're starting to lay glass. got all those tacked down now. Both sides ready to glass that panel in, and that strip of flooring onto the sidewall and onto that door. And over here we'll get some glass laid up over here, tying this whole thing in. Same on that side over there. Time to start cutting some glass, get that ready, and then mix up resin and we'll lay some glass down. So working on the bait tank, putting in the fittings, I'm using the 3M 5200. Best stuff made for all marine seals. Drilled the bottom, put the fitting in, and down inside we've got it coming to a 90 degree. That way it spins the water in a circle, creating a circular current which the fish need to survive. Here's the drain cup, holes, letting all the water through, but not letting any of the bait get out. So now we're gonna put this onto here. And wipe that sealant off the threads. That way if it ever needs to come off, the seal will hold, but the threads won't be glued in. Tighten this up and let that sealant 5200 cure, and then that pump hose can slip onto here, getting water into the bait tank. All right, got our layer of glass on here. Let that set up, come back later and start working on that section right there under the splash well. Tie that into the flooring. So now we're doing a bit of grinding, itching powder manufacturing time. Doing the grind down of the glass laid into here, around there. Now starting to prep the front side of the splash well. Need to measure right in here from the top of this down to the floor. Make a piece of marine plywood to go down there, and on this side at the corner, both sides, that will again reinforce even more so the floor to the transom to the splash well. Time to get the tape measure, measure and cut some pieces of plywood in here, get that fitted in. Come back and see how that works. Okay, so been measuring and cutting, spared everybody the details, but here's what I've come up with on enclosing, tying in the back. Marine plywood cut to shape. I'm going to leave this opening to be able to get down into the bilge, and I'll hang a vinyl fabric down right here that'll close that off, yet allow water to go back and access in case I ever got to clear the bilges of fishing line or any other garbage. So now that we've got this wood all cut to shape, I'm gonna drill, put some screws into the side pieces, attaching them to this front piece. Once I've got that put into place with screws, then I'm going to take a router and take this 90-degree sharp edge and make it rounded over so the glass will fold over that, because glass does not go over sharp 90-degree bends. It will pucker and leave a big air bubble. Not good. So now time to put some screws into these boards, make all three into one, router it, and then I'll put some fiberglass on the insides of it. That way it seals up the seals up the plywood, I should say. And then this outer area will be fiberglassed over later, tying this all together. Got the wood cut. Time to put some screws in there and get to work on it. All right, we've got the piece all finished, routed, sanded. There it is. And now we'll take on the back side here and fiberglass this, again sealing it up. Even though it is marine plywood, there's no harm in having fiberglass, making sure it's sealed up even better. Get the resin mixed after we cut some cloth to fit these sections here, and we'll come back and glass it up. Alright, we got the chop strand cut and positioned on the inside of that splash well enclosure. Now to mix up some resin, wet that out, and we can turn it over and do the opposite side. All glassed up on the back side of this. Got one layer of chop strand, one layer of 7410, and then some 20-ounce cloth on the corners, just to really beef that up on the inside. It'll get the same, maybe an extra layer on the outer side once we glass this into the splash well. Time to let this set up, come back at it in a few hours. right here in the splash well, filled in the little gaps with a piece of wood, glassed that in, and then made some peanut butter to fill in the unevenness. Got corners radiused and more peanut butter to level that out. Now we've got pretty even level surface. Gonna need to sand that and then start wrapping everything in glass. Various layers on the top, the sides, and on the opposite side over here. That'll give it all kinds of strength once I've got multiple layers wrapping around all of that. Coming together here. Bit more every day.